فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنَهُمَا نَسِيَ حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. Suwratul-Kahfi, Surah 18, Ayat 61. This is a continuation from the previous verse. So first we will read this verse. Falamma, it's actually then when, because it's a timeline event. Fa is not to be translated. So over here, it's not a cause and effect relationship. It's not a causal thing that is being mentioned over here. But then sounds odd, so we'll break it up. But then when Balaga, Balaga is in the dual form, so they reached means they too reached, the two of them, Musa al-Islam and Joshua al-Islam. Joshua, by the way, at that time was not a prophet, but he eventually became a prophet, so we say alayhi-salam, alayhim-salam, we can say together. When they reached, they, dual and plural, the difference doesn't exist in the English language, but in Arabic it does. So here the dual form is used because there were two of them. But we can't differentiate that in English. If we read when they two eventually reached, when they two reached, it sounds odd. It's not required. Balag, but it's sufficient for us if we just remember that as we proceed. That's it. Balaga, when they reached, and why I have said when they eventually reached, that comes from the connotation. Lamma is used. It's not simply when, there's more to it. It can mean different things in different contexts because they were on a long journey, if you remember, right? Just in the previous verse, it is stated about Hokoban, not Hokban, but Hokoban. So, lifetimes, I explained that before, yesterday. Balaga, when they reached, Majma, I have explained the junction, Bainahima. Bainihima. It should be in the jar status, it's Bainihima. Between them, Hima, the two, between them two, it's again the dual form. So what translation we have till now? But then when they eventually reach the junction between them, so when we read the English, it sounds natural. But when we break the Arabic and just try to do word-to-word translation and missing the essence of it, then it sounds odd sometimes. That's what Nasiya, again in the dual form, they too forgot. So they forgot. If I say they too forgot, you may say two, T-O-O-2, that's in addition, they forgot. So I will avoid that henceforth. Nasiya, they forgot. Hutahuma, about the fish. They forgot about the fish. Now, huta is fish. It's a big fish, basically. Fa-ittakhadha. Fattakhadha. Again, this is a timeline event, not a causal event. Then, and then, ittakhadha, he took, but we say it took because huta, it's in reference to the fish. So it took. Sabilahu, its way. Fi al-bahri, fil bahri, into the sea. And the Sarvan word is a bit tricky. I'll help you to understand. Straight as if in a tunnel, slipping away wondrously. A lot of words over there, a lot of connotations over there. Saraban can at least, the minimum 2 words are required to describe Saraban. The first is a tunnel or a burrow. So that is one. The second one is sort of slipping away or sneaking away. You understand? Sneakily. So it slipped away, slipping away. And straight as if in a tunnel, and wondrously, I'm adding to sort of capture the amazement with which this event is being narrated. So those are sort of implied. There's no way to sort of directly give you a word-to-word mapping to get those words wondrously. Otherwise, we could have done an exclamation mark without that wondrously. So that is also okay. Straight as if in a tunnel. Now, what happened was there was a fish which they had. It was supposed to be their food or meal, but then it slipped away. And it slipped away into the sea. And so it almost created a vortex. And that vortex is what is being described as sort of a tunnel. So you understand. So when you throw a pebble in the water, I'm not talking about the ripple effect later on, but the initial vortex that is formed. So that is being compared to tunnel, and that the slipping away is also sort of coming from the root word sariba, I guess. And this straight as if in a tunnel, slipping away wondrously, and the additional words are just to fit it into the context how things are happening. Straight as if in a tunnel, slipping away wondrously. Okay, so we'll read it once more. Okay, let's hold. We'll read the translation just once, and then at the end we will obviously read it once more. No, let us read it now. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا نَسِيَا حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. But then when they eventually reached the junction between them, they forgot about the fish. And then it took its way into the sea straight as if in a tunnel, slipping away wondrously. Now, I'll have to give a background. Yesterday, I did not give the background. I mentioned to you, I think I gave you a very passing reference, did not go into the details. It necessitates that you have some background. Otherwise, the story without the background will not be so profound or will not create that impact which it would otherwise if we are aware of the background. So probably most of us are already aware of the background. That's good. But if you're not, just in case, then I'll just help you remember that, or I'll remind you that. If you don't know at all, then this will be good to know. So what happened was Musa al-Islam by that time was already a prophet, and that we had discussed yesterday. I had mentioned that yesterday. So he gave a khutbah, and that inspired people. You could compare it to motivational speaker, but these motivational speakers would not match anything to what Musa al-Islam gave. So the people were inspired, the people were motivated, people were moved. So one of the Bani Israel, one of the Bani Israel people, he came to meet Musa alayhi salam and said, "You must be the most knowledgeable person on the earth." And Musa alayhi salam, what he replied, I'll say what he replied first, and then I'll get to the story. He said, "Yes, I am." Now, if you look at this, per se, is this reply very wrong? Because he is a prophet. He knows that he's been blessed with prophethood. He's a messenger. He's blessed with messengership. So by that virtue which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon him, it is not something wrong to think that he is perhaps the most knowledgeable person on the face of the earth, especially because he's being guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously. And he's the only person with whom Allah spoke direct, Kalamullah, the only person, the only prophet. But then to make such a claim is wrong. So now what happens is, because it's just a lapse, you can say, it's not a sin, but the personality of Musa alayhi salam is being held to such a high regard by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that even a small lapse, a minor lapse, he's being held accountable. Similar with what happened with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similar. So now he said, "Okay, you think you're the most knowledgeable person on the face of the earth, Musa?" Allah is speaking to him. "So you should go to such and such a place where you meet a person, a slave of mine, my slave, and you should meet him and learn from him. And he is, obviously the name is not mentioned in the Quran, but we get it from other sources, from the Hadith, the Islamic sources, Islamic literature, and other sources as well, that he is Khidr alayhi salam, a person by the name of Khidr alayhi salam, who probably is a prophet, a messenger. Okay, but there is not as definitive a proof, but then he's a teacher of a prophet. What can you say about him? He must be a prophet because he's all continuously being guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And that comes out in his speech. We'll read that thing too. So now Musa alayhi salam is being humbled, and as a human being, he understands his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, that of a slave. So he decides, so the only purpose in his life now that remains is to go and meet that person. That is the backdrop of the story. So he took one of the youth, the boy, Joshua, who was ever inquisitive. And so Musa alayhi salam took him along with him to accompany him on that journey. And that journey we started yesterday. And he gave that I will not stop unless I spend lifetimes. So that sort of thing was mentioned last time. So on this journey, what happened was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them, take a fish. And they thought, okay. So they cooked it. It was a cooked fish. These things we get from the Hadith, not from the Quran, by the way. They cooked it and they thought they would have it as a meal. And something else Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentioned, that something strange will happen to the fish. First of all, you should go to the junction of the two seas, and something strange will happen to the fish, and then you should know that is the point where you'll get to meet him. And we'll talk about the journey throughout the next few verses. It will come, but it also seems to suggest in this literature that the fish will come alive, and that is what happened. So that's why it's expressing a surprise. They forgot about the fish, and it took its and then it took its way into the sea straight as if in a tunnel, slipping away wondrously. But they had proceeded by that time, and then when they were having a discussion with each other, Musa and Joshua salam, Musa and Joshua alayhi salam, so then they had to retrace their footsteps and come back to the same point, and where they would eventually get to meet Khidr alayhi salam. That was the backdrop of that. And there are other many things we can talk about Khidr alayhi salam from the story, from what the Prophet told us. We'll do that. But one more thing important, I think I should have mentioned, but I missed somehow. I'll take this opportunity, since we are actually giving a background to this first few verses, this history, the story of Khidr alayhi salam, the teacher of Musa alayhi salam. So, if you are being told to go to a certain place, the junction of the two seas, if it's a physical location, which it is, so that's why they went to that physical location. But if it is just that, is it possible that you can miss that location and then proceed forward? Is that even possible? Think for yourself. Not right. But they forgot about that also, and the event that happened with the fish, that also we'll get to know more. Interesting things are happening. How can a dead fish, a cooked fish, not just dead fish, come alive and slip away? And what is this junction of the two seas? One is, it's a physical thing. That's there. There's no denying that. But there is a second thing, and that is now you will need some philosophy to understand this part. So basically, it's hinting at two sources of knowledge, which was also mentioned. I mean, this thing, something similar is also mentioned in Surah that Adam al-Islam was given the name وَعَلَّمَ الْآدَمَ أَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, and Adam al-Islam was given the ism of all things. And then it also further said that whenever guidance comes to you to follow, then there will be no worry for you, basically. In short, that's the mahfum, faham, that's understanding. So there are two sources of knowledge. One is that which you can explore by yourself, exploratory knowledge. One is that which comes to you from divine sources, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when these two oceans of knowledge or seas of knowledge meet, only then your knowledge becomes complete. Yesterday I was talking about Islamic spirituality. You can't just focus on spirituality and omit the physical dimension. You cannot just focus too much on the physical dimensions, physical reality, and omit the spiritual aspect as well. So when the two converge, the physical and the spiritual, that makes you a complete human. So that is what is being hinted, the junction of the two seas. The junction of the two seas, the physical reality, the appearance, and the spiritual reality, the hidden, or we can say the actual reality, the reality. So the best, I think, work on this subject is by the scholar Baydawi, also called Qazi Baydawi in history, a remarkable scholar in his own right. He has done remarkable analysis on some of these very intricate aspects of spirituality. He's not got overboard. He's not messed up as some others have done before him and after him, but he gives an insight into spirituality like no one else has. I mean, very few have done. I should not say no one, but very few have been able to. So that is the backdrop. So the two oceans, and in this case, the meeting of Musa alayhi salam with Khidr alayhi salam signifies it from the perspective of Musa alayhi salam, which represents the physical dimensions, and Khidr alayhi salam representing the spiritual dimensions. And when the physical reality, the physical appearance I mean, the physical reality, so to say, the appearance was the reality. That appearance gets to meet with the reality, then the understanding becomes so much more enhanced. Without the spiritual dimensions, it is incomplete. So these were some of the insights, the historical background, and some more insights which I quoted from Baidawi, which are very, very profound in its own right. And if we remember these things, the story, the history becomes so much more meaningful for us to interpret. And interpretation, by the way, is very important, and as will be highlighted and attested to in this surah, in the story itself, in this history itself, a little later. We'll come to it when we do, and I think that's it. If you want to, we can. I think we have read it already. Okay, let's read it one more time. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا نَسِيَا حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. Two more things before I give you the translation. Huta is also whale, but here it's not whale. It's a big fish. And sabil, let's talk about sabil as well. I think I have not mentioned about sabil. So sirat is a way, a sabil is a way. What's the difference? Sirat is a way, the way or the path which leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That path is, there is no ambiguity in that path. There is absolute certainty. That is a path guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you were to walk on that path, you can only walk on the path if you're guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His nur. So that is sirat. You can call it the highway. And sabil are the ways or the roads or the paths that are connecting to it. So the ways, the multiple ways connecting to the highway. For example, if sirat represents, what should I say, righteousness, then righteousness can be achieved through various ways and means, and all of those ways and means would be sabil. So that is what I think, a few more points that I thought I would highlight. Sabil I've highlighted now, Saraban I've highlighted before. I think, yeah, Sirat and Sabil, the difference. Yeah. So we're good. We'll just read it one more time. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا نَسِيَا حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. But then, when they eventually reached the junction between them, they forgot about the fish. And then it took its way, into the sea, straight as if in a tunnel, slipping away wondrously.